Michael Carter was a name that echoed across the real estate industry. A self-made billionaire, he had built Carter Realty empire from the ground up, owning some of the most luxurious properties across the country. He had spent years ensuring that his company had a reputation for excellence, but recently disturbing reports had started to surface. Employees had begun whispering about unethical practices, discrimination, and even fraud within the company. Minority clients were allegedly being mistreated, hardworking employees were overlooked for promotions, and managers were pocketing commissions that never belonged to them. Michael had always prided himself on being a fair and ethical businessman. He couldn't ignore these allegations, but he also knew that if he walked into his company as himself, everything would appear perfect. No one would dare show their true colors in front of the CEO. He needed to see the truth for himself. With the help of his trusted assistant, Vanessa, Michael devised a plan. He would go undercover as Mike Johnson, a struggling job seeker desperate for an opportunity. He changed his wardrobe, replacing expensive suits with worn-out clothing, got rid of his signature watch, and even let his well-groomed beard grow out slightly. His resume was stripped of any connection to Carter Realty empire, making him look like an ordinary man in need of work. When he arrived for the interview, the receptionist barely acknowledged him. She dismissed him with a wave of her hand, muttering, "Have a seat. Someone will get to you when they can." Michael observed the employees around him. The office was bustling, but there was an undeniable air of elitism. Certain staff members carried themselves with a sense of entitlement, while others, especially those of minority backgrounds, seemed to keep their heads down, working diligently, yet receiving little recognition. After a long wait, HR finally called him in. It was a rushed, impersonal interview. The woman barely looked up from her desk. "You'll start as a junior sales associate, low commissions, no bonuses for the first 3 months. If you don't hit your target, you're out. Got it?" Michael nodded. He had already sensed the toxicity within the company, but this was only the beginning. On his first day, he was placed under David Sterling, a senior manager notorious for his cutthroat approach. David believed power belonged to those who could manipulate the system. He had a clear, unspoken policy. Wealthy, white clients were prioritized, while minorities were subtly discouraged from pursuing high-end properties. Michael watched in disbelief as David turned away a black couple looking to purchase a luxury apartment. "It's probably out of their price range," David muttered, without even glancing at their financials. Moments later, he enthusiastically welcomed a less qualified white couple and offered them the same unit. Michael knew he needed to get deeper into this. He befriended his co-workers, pretending to be an eager new hire looking for mentorship. What he uncovered was disturbing. Employees feared speaking up. Those who had tried to challenge David's unethical behavior had been either fired or intimidated into silence. A culture of fear and corruption loomed over the office. But amidst the corruption, Michael found hope. Marcus, a young, ambitious real estate agent, refused to play dirty. He worked hard, treating every client with respect, regardless of their background. Because of this, he was frequently undermined and overlooked by his superiors. As the days passed, Michael gathered undeniable evidence. He recorded conversations where managers openly discussed overcharging minority clients. He documented promotions given based on favoritism rather than merit. The breaking point came when Marcus was falsely accused of mishandling a deal and fired on the spot. Michael knew it was a setup. That night, he sent Vanessa a message. "Prepare the termination files. I'm cleaning house tomorrow." The next morning, Michael entered the office, not as Mike Johnson, but as Michael Carter, the CEO. The room fell silent. Employees who had ignored him just days ago now stood frozen. David's face drained of color. "Mr. Carter, we didn't know you were coming in today." Michael stepped forward, his voice steady but firm. "That's the problem, isn't it?" He called for an emergency company-wide meeting. One by one, he revealed the recordings, the documents, and the overwhelming evidence of corruption. David and several other corrupt managers were fired on the spot. Employees who had been complicit in discriminatory practices were immediately escorted out of the building. Those who had suffered in silence were finally given the respect and recognition they deserved. The media exploded with the story. Carter Realty Empire became a symbol of what could happen when a leader took real action to fight injustice. Lawsuits were filed against the former employees involved in fraud. Industry leaders took notice, forcing many real estate firms to reevaluate their own policies. That evening, Michael sat in his office looking out at the city skyline. He had uncovered a dark reality, but in doing so, he had ignited a revolution within his company. This wasn't just about real estate anymore. It was about justice, accountability, and ensuring that no one, regardless of background, would be denied a fair chance ever again. Over the following months, Michael implemented sweeping reforms. He personally oversaw new hiring policies, ensuring transparency and fairness at every level. The corrupt former managers faced legal consequences, with some even serving jail time for their fraudulent activities. Other real estate firms began reviewing their own unethical practices, following Carter Realty Empire's example. The company became the gold standard for ethical business in the industry. Michael made sure diversity training was mandatory, and any discriminatory behavior was met with swift consequences. One afternoon, Marcus, now promoted to senior agent, walked into Michael's office. "I just closed a deal with that same couple David turned away months ago," he said, a proud smile on his face. "They got their dream home and they couldn't be happier." Michael nodded, pride evident in his expression. That's what this was always about, giving people what they deserve, without prejudice. As he gazed out over the city, he knew that he had changed not just his company, but the industry itself. A movement had begun, one that proved that integrity, fairness, and justice would always win in the end. And with that, Michael Carter, the once undercover CEO, continued his mission, to build a world where business was conducted with honor, and success was measured not just in profits, but in the lives positively impacted along the way.